So in case you remember, this is the end game where we left off. So again, Max Euwe plays the white pieces, and he has an advantage here because he has a distanced pawn on a5 here, which is superior to all the pawns in the middle, in the center. Basically, this pawn is going to derive all of black's attention towards the queen side, whilst white capitalize on the king side over here. Not only does white have a better pawn that's marginalized from the other pawn structures here on a5, but he also has a very important element in rook endgames, which is he has the rook behind the pawn. So this rook is behind the pawn instead of, let's say, on a8. Okay, so basically what this does, it frees up the rook to do maneuvers along the a file whilst protecting his pawn, which is stuff that he couldn't do if his rook was either on these three squares. So this is why in the very first moments of this endgame, Stalberg takes time to check the trajectory of his king, whether or not he should go like this to c6 or like this to the middle, right? And he finally realizes, Stalberg, that if he brings his king this way, like g7, king g2, king f6, king f3, king e5, then white have a6, which is forced to be replied with rook a7 to stop the pawn, and then white has rook a5, a really good move. Basically, the black king can't go back. Well, he can, but this will just create a very nice square for the white king. It will just advance and take control of the d5 square, and the black king will be thrown away from where his main goal is and has to be to the a6 pawn. So and if he plays d5, which is a losing move, white just wins a pawn like this, and because of the pin, next move he'll take here, right? So yeah, this pawn will be lost. So this is just one of many examples in this endgame where white has the opportunity to maneuver his rook sometimes however he wants, and again, this just opens a lot of possibilities and opportunity for the white rook, whilst the black rook will be stuck here, having to stop the pawn, which will be annoying. So yeah, that's the basis of this rook endgame. So this is the endgame. Again, Max Euwe has the white pieces, and Gideon Ståhlberg has the black pieces. So in this endgame, black has the move, and basically he wants to bring his king to the center, mainly to stop this very dangerous pawn. And white also wants to bring his king to the center, so the first moves are sort of predictable. King f8, king g2, king e7, king f3, king d7, king e4, and rook a7. The reason why Stalberg doesn't play king e6 or rook c5 or even king c6 in this position, king c6, is because all three lose, even though he would want to play those moves to cover this square because he wouldn't want white entering on d5. This is losing because of this, and white will just exchange rooks, and well, actually I can show you. So king would go here, take, and then something like this. This is winning for white. Black should also play king e6 here because it derives from getting here, and white will have an easier pawn. Also, white will probably go like this with his king and protect the pawn and help it help it promote to a queen on the queen side here. So king e6 isn't an option, and rook c5 is simply bad because again, white just pushes his pawn. Then rook will go here, and then a7, rook a8, and then king d5, and this is a way better position for white. I mean, the farther the pawn is in the black position with the farther the white king is advanced, the better. So those aren't options. Instead, Stalberg plays rook a7 here. Which basically just stops the a-pawn from being as dangerous as it was. So next we have king d5, taking a very important square and attacking greatly the black position. h5, f4. So white wants to stop the pawn rush by black. Black wants to do this pawn rush to have a pass pawn on the queen side, therefore derive white's rook's attention on the a pawn, protecting the a pawn. So if black can make this pawn a bit more dangerous by making it a pass pawn, then he could exchange white's a5 pawn against black's h pawn. So that's what he tends to do. So f4, a very good move, just trying to defend g5. But that doesn't stop black. I mean, they'll play f6, g5 anyway. So black plays rook a6, and now there are many possible moves for white here. So Bronstein in the book just describes that Euwe told Stalberg after the game that rook a6 was probably not the best move in this position, and that f6 would have probably been better, more drawful, in the hopes of playing g5, h4, as I said earlier, to make up a pass h-pawn, and therefore exchanging a-pawn against the h-pawn. So there's a couple variations here I would like to show you that indicate that Euwe might be right with f6, with suggesting f6 instead of rook a6. So after f6 here, there is a couple variations. So first off, you have white here play pawn a6, and black would play g5. Okay, and from there f5, h4, g takes h4, g takes h4, and here white have two possibilities: either bringing down the king to stop the black pawn, or taking with the rook. So if he takes directly the h-pawn with the rook, not that, rook takes h4, then black have rook takes a6, rook a7, check, king e8, king e6, and now here white threatened checkmate, and well, black has a resource to draw the game, so d5 check. Not only that does this save the f6 pawn, but it also checks the king and exposes the king, because before he was kind of protected from the checks. Now he has to take and then check, and then here and then check, and then this would be a repetition, right? Yeah, so that's draw. The second possibility after h4, g takes h4, g takes h4. This was not played in the game, by the way. This is a sub-variation. Is king e4, trying to catch up with the pawn and take it with the king instead of with the rook, exchanging a pawns, which he doesn't want. So if king e6, king c6, king f4, king b5, attacking the rook, rook a3, exchange of rooks, so take, takes, king g4, threatening the pawn on h4, king b5, king takes h4, and basically here Bronstein in the book says that black protects his f6 pawn in time, so this is draw, so we can just see here king c5, king h5, king d5, king g6, king e5, e4, trying to fend off the protector. Black has to take, and then king takes f6, d5, king g6,
d4, f6, d3, f7, d2, f8 queen, d1 queen, and basically this is drawn.
So that's the second variation after gh. So what does white do here after all this? So obviously this variation does not work here for white. Both variations are drawn, so he has to do something particular in order to try to not concede the draw here, as he is playing for the win. So the second option, instead of a6 here after f6 by black, is rook a3. That's the second variation. So on rook a3, black still plays the same thing. So g5, f5, h4, gh, king e4, h3, king f3, d5. This is a very important move because this allows the black king to escape and attack f5, which he does at this variation. So king g3, king d6, king takes a3, and king e5, and this is basically drawn due to the fact that white can't really protect his pawn unless he wants to give this up. So sample variation is king g7 here, rook g7, king g4 here, rook g7 check, and then he can just not protect the pawn, and no progress will be made in this position. So yeah, that's annoying for white and makes it drawn. And the third variation, so after f6 instead of rook a6, we have e4, which is the third possibility for white here. And after e4, black just plays rook a6, and it's the same idea as in the game, but black have an extra tempo. So the game actually went rook a6, e4, and f6. But in the game, if black would have played f6 directly, e4 here is a bad move for white because it redirects the trajectory of the king towards the h1 square, which will be crucial to stop the h pawn, which is about to get loose. So yeah, Bronstein isn't a fan of e2, e4 here. And instead he says that rook a2 would have been a better move for white, and he gives this variation. So rook a2, f6, rook a3, g5, f5, h4, takes, king e4, h3, king f3, h2, king g2, king c6, king takes h2, king b5, king g3, rook takes, king takes h5, and king h4. And this is winning for white because now black doesn't have his king there to get to e5 on time, and so basically white will just win this f6 pawn. So king b5, king h5, king c5, king g6, king d5, and king takes f6, which is completely winning. So yes, white missed rook a3 over there. Instead he plays e4, and black play f6 back. So now white plays rook a2, the same move, but just a move later. That's all it takes to draw or lose a game. Just a move later will ruin your whole game. So g5 here by Gideon Ståhlberg. f5, h4, g takes h4, g takes h4. This is the actual game, by the way. This is actually what was played. And white play king c4. And here, Stalberg plays the losing move of the game, which is really unevident, but it is what it is. He plays rook a8. This loses completely because once the pawn will be here, white will take this pawn here on h4, on h3, or on h2. Black won't be able to take the a7 pawn here because white will have check and takes the rook. So a sample variation of this is what happened in the game. But if he would have played the right move, which was rook a7 here for black, this would have been a complete draw. And I have two variations with white to support this. This is not the actual game. This is a variation of what could have happened if black played rook a7. Just to clarify, what actually was played in the game was this blunder. Yeah. So if Stalberg would have played rook a7 with black, then white would have. Euwe has a6, which is a very good move, and then king c6. And now there are two variations that white can play, both end in a draw for black, because black is really playing here for the draw. He's not the one with the advantage. He's in a disadvantage, trying to prove it a draw. So here, white have two main options. So rook a3, and if this happens, then h3, rook takes h3, rook takes a6, rook h6, king d7, rook h7 check. He doesn't take on f6 here because there's a quite obvious winning move for black, which is check. And then after king takes, well, then just rook takes rook. That's a cheeky little line there. So white plays rook h7 here. Rook h7 check. King has to move. E8, king e8, king d5, and as we've seen earlier, something similar to this, rook h5 check, king takes d6, and rook e5. This is the draw move, so it basically blocks the king from ever getting to this f pawn, and either makes white protect his pawn here, which is very passive because it doesn't do anything per se in the position, and it frees up the black king, or he'll just give up this pawn and then it would be a complete draw. So yeah, that's a draw variation. The other possibility after king c6, white can play king d4, and here black has h3, rook a3. After rook a3, h2, rook a1, king d7, king d5, h1 queen, rook takes h1, and now black can take on a6 without having to go through the pin here. So, which happened in the game, so black couldn't take the a7 pawn because of such a tactic. So after rook takes a6, rook h7 check, king e8, king e6, d5 check, as we've seen before, something similar. King takes d5, rook a5, king d4, and rook e5. The same type of position. So yeah, both of these draw, so that implements that rook a7 is a complete game changer in this position. Instead, Stalberg plays the losing move, rook a8, which is unfortunate. And white sees this and capitalizes, so he plays a6, king c6, a7, h3, king d4, king c7. Note that if he would have played here to exchange pawns, so rook takes h2, rook takes a7, in that idea, white would have played rook c2 first, a Zwischenzug, a check in between. Black has to move his king, so he can't move here. Well, if he does, white can play king takes h2, and rook takes h2, and after rook takes a7, rook a7, and you'll just gobble on a7 over there. So after this sub-variation, rook c2, black will have to remain on the b file, which is very bad, because after takes, white will play king d5, and this is pretty monstrous. Black can't even play king c7 because of rook h7, rook takes a7, king takes a7, and king takes d6 over here. So after h3 here and king d4, black can't play h2, pawn h2 right away, and has to play king c7. So king c7, king d5, king d7, and rook a3, triggering the h3 pawn, so h2, rook a1, and black doesn't have many choices here. Bronstein notes that after h1 queen, obviously, white have rook takes queen, and Stalberg, the black pieces, can't take on a7 because Euwe has rook h7 check, king e8, and rook takes a7, right? And that loses the game. So after rook a1 here, black has to play this little resource he found. So rook e8, rook a1 h1, rook e5 check, king d4, rook a5. Basically just swishing the king away for a tempo. This still loses. I mean, rook takes h2, and black once again can't take on a7 because of rook h7 check, and then rook takes rook here. So he has to play king c6. And after rook h7, rook a4 check. Bronstein gives a pretty fascinating variation if Stalberg would have done it, but he played rook a4 here, and this lost the game. But I just want to show this variation for the fun. Basically, after d5 here, so a very bad move, Euwe, so the white pieces have a very exciting tactic where he sacrifices two queens here. So e5, rook a4 check, king c3, and after f takes e5, which is pretty forced because the white pawns are infiltrating the black position, you have f6, king d6, f7, king e7, f8 queen check, sacrificing the first queen, and then after king takes f8, a8 queen, sacrificing the second queen. After rook takes a8, rook h8, and white is winning that rook on a8. so d5 isn't possible, and that's why. So he played rook a4, and after here it's an easy win for white with king e3, rook a3, king f4, rook a1, rook f7, king c5, rook takes f6, rook takes a7, rook e6, rook a1, f6, king c6, king f5, king d7, rook e7 check, king d8, and king e6. Basically, this is where Gideon Ståhlberg resigned with the black pieces. So basically, white is threatening to take here, and or to push his pawn here to promote his queen. I don't know if black tries to defend his pawn here on d6. Then white just has f7 with the threat of rook e8 check and queen. So f7, rook f1, rook e8 check, king c8 forced, and f8 queen, which is simply winning. So yeah, after king e6 here, Gideon Ståhlberg resigned, and thus making Euwe win after 67 moves of play. That's a long game. I hope you enjoyed this video, this segment. If you liked it, please let me know. Please share this video if you really enjoyed it, and see you next time.